The escrow officer slid the folder across the desk and said, "Congratulations, you're a homeowner." I stared at those words for a second longer than I should have. Homeowner. Me. 29 years old, single, no cosigner, no family money, no safety net. Just 7 years of double shifts, skipped vacations, and a savings account I treated like it was sacred. I picked up the keys, 2 of them, on a plain silver ring. Nothing fancy, but my hand shook a little holding them, and I had to press my fingers together to make it stop. I didn't tell anyone. Not that day, not that week. That choice didn't happen by accident. I grew up in a house where nothing belonged to just one person. If you had something good, it became a family conversation. If you earned something, it was reframed as a group effort. My older brother had always been the loudest voice in those conversations. He had a way of making your wins feel like obligations, like the moment you crossed a finish line, you owed everyone in the bleachers a piece of the medal. 2 years before I bought the condo, I made the mistake of mentioning I was saving for a place of my own. We were at my aunt's house for Easter, paper plates and folding chairs, the usual. I said it quietly, just to my mom, but my brother heard from across the table. He laughed first. Not a cruel laugh. Worse, the kind of laugh that means he didn't take it seriously at all. "A condo?" he said, leaning back in his chair. "You? You can barely keep up with your car payment." That wasn't true, and he knew it, but no one corrected him. His wife nodded along, spooning potato salad onto her plate. "I mean, it does seem like a lot for one person. You don't even have kids. What do you need all that space for?" I kept my face neutral. I'd learned early that showing emotion at the table was like bleeding in open water. Someone always circled. "I just think it makes more sense to put that energy into the family," my brother said. He had this tone he used, reasonable and warm on the surface, sharp underneath. "Carla and I have been looking at places too, you know. But with 2 kids and 1 income right now, it's tight. If you had extra, the smart thing would be to pool it." Pool it, his word for give it to me. My aunt nodded. Even my mom stayed quiet, which was its own kind of answer. I excused myself before dessert, walked to my car, and sat in the parking lot for 15 minutes. I wasn't crying. I was calculating. How long would it take? How much more did I need to save? And most importantly, who would I tell when I finally got there? The answer, I decided that night, was nobody. Not until the ink was dry and the locks were mine. So I kept my head down. I worked the morning shift at the hospital as an occupational therapist and picked up weekend hours at an outpatient clinic across town. I packed my lunch every single day. I drove a car with 200,000 miles on it and a passenger window that only rolled halfway down. My coworkers thought I was just frugal. My family thought I was struggling. I let both groups believe what they wanted. I moved into the condo on a Tuesday afternoon with a rented cargo van and 2 friends from work who asked 0 questions and accepted pizza as payment. The place was a 2nd-floor unit in a quiet building near a park. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, a kitchen with white subway tile that caught the morning light. To most people, it was a modest starter home. To me, it was the first place I had ever lived where every decision was mine. I stood in the empty living room after my friends left, barefoot on the new carpet, and just breathed. The walls were mine. The lease was gone, replaced by a deed. No landlord who could raise rent or sell the building out from under me. No shared walls where I could hear arguments I wanted no part of. Just quiet, solid, mine. I ordered takeout that first night and ate on the floor because I hadn't bought furniture yet. I watched the light change across the ceiling as the sun went down, and I felt something settle inside me that I hadn't realized was still wound up. I should have known peace always announces itself right before something tries to disrupt it. I was careful on social media. No posts about the new address. No moving day photos. My location settings were locked. But 2 weeks in, my coworker tagged me in a group photo from a small dinner I hosted, just 4 people, nothing elaborate. She meant well. The background showed my kitchen, the white subway tile, a corner of the open shelving I'd put up myself. I didn't see it until the next morning. By then, my brother had already commented. "Nice place, new kitchen, where are you now?" 4 words, casual, almost innocent. But I had spent my whole life learning to read his tone, and that wasn't curiosity. That was reconnaissance. I didn't respond. I deleted the comment, locked the post, and spent the rest of the morning at work trying to convince myself I was overreacting. His text came at noon. "Hey, why'd you delete my comment? You move or something? Carla and I have been meaning to catch up." I put my phone face down on my desk and saw 3 more patients before I answered. I kept it simple. Everything's fine. Just busy. Talk soon. He called twice that evening. I let both go to voicemail. The second message was longer, friendlier, the tone he used when he was pretending he wasn't bothered. He mentioned that Carla's hours had been cut at the salon, that the kids had a school trip coming up, that things were just a little tight right now. Just wanted to catch up, he said at the end. Nothing urgent. With my brother, everything urgent sounded like nothing urgent until it landed on your doorstep. 3 days later, it literally did. I was coming out of the elevator with groceries when I saw his car in the visitor lot. I stopped walking. I watched him through the glass lobby door for a moment. He was on his phone, looking up at the building, counting floors. He hadn't seen me yet. I stood very still. Everything I'd read about my brother over the years condensed into that single moment. The way he'd borrowed money and reframed it as a loan until enough time passed that asking for it back became awkward. The way he'd talked over my ideas at family dinners until they became his ideas. The way he made generosity feel like a lease agreement, always with terms he wrote himself. He looked up and saw me through the glass. He smiled, raised a hand. I walked out and kept my face calm. There she is, he said, spreading his arms like we'd planned this. I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd see if you wanted company. You weren't in the neighborhood, I said. You tracked my building from the photo. He laughed it off. I just figured since you were clearly settling somewhere new, you'd want family to see it. He looked up at the facade again. This is nice. Really nice. What are you paying here? This isn't a good time, I said. But he was already moving toward the lobby door, holding it for himself like I'd extended an invitation. I stood in the threshold, bags in hand, and made a decision in about 2 seconds. I could cause a scene in my own building lobby on week 3. Or I could let him in once and set the terms clearly. I let him in. I set the terms poorly. I know that now. He walked through the condo the same way a contractor walks through a renovation project. Slow, deliberate, hands in his pockets but eyes touching everything. He made approving sounds about the kitchen, asked how many square feet, wondered out loud whether the second bedroom had good light. It does, I said. It's my office. Right, he nodded, moving toward the hallway. But it's a full bedroom though. Bed would fit easy. I set my groceries down on the counter. Why would a bed need to fit? He turned around and gave me the smile. The patient, reasonable one. Look, I'm not asking for anything. I'm just saying. You've got 2 bedrooms. We've got 2 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm just thinking out loud. Think out loud somewhere else, I said. He didn't get angry. That was always the thing about my brother. He didn't escalate. He absorbed, retreated, and recalculated. He stayed another 20 minutes, helped himself to a glass of water, asked about my job, and left with a hug that lasted a second too long. At the door, he looked back at the condo one more time with an expression I'd seen before. Not admiration. Appraisal. I locked the deadbolt the moment he was gone. Then I stood in my kitchen and thought about every single thing I'd let him touch or see. The next morning, I called a locksmith. I want to be clear about this because it matters. I did not wait. I did not give doubt the benefit of time. I'd spent enough years around my brother to know that the assessment phase comes before the ask, and the ask comes before the pressure, and once pressure starts, it doesn't stop on its own. I called the locksmith at 8 in the morning and had new deadbolts on both the front door and the interior building access by noon. Then I called the building manager and had my unit flagged so that no one could be let upstairs without my explicit authorization. Not family, not anyone. Then I called the security company the building used and added a smart lock with a unique code, a doorbell camera with motion alerts, and an interior sensor tied to my phone. My coworker asked why I was suddenly so focused on home security. I told her I'd had a package stolen from the hallway. She nodded and moved on. What I didn't tell her was that I knew my brother. And knowing him meant knowing that the visit wasn't over. It was an opening move. He called once that week. Friendly, surface level, no mention of the condo. He called again the following week, same tone. He texted to say the kids had asked about me, which he only ever did when he was building a case. Then he went quiet for almost 2 weeks, which was the part that actually worried me. My brother's silence was never peace, it was preparation. I had started my evening routine, locking up and checking the camera app before bed, when a motion alert pinged on my phone. The doorbell camera. Someone had been in the hallway outside my unit. I opened the footage and watched. It was brief, less than 30 seconds. A figure approached my door, slowed, then walked away. The angle and the hood made it hard to confirm, but the build and the gait were familiar enough. I saved the clip and called the building manager first thing the next morning. I reported it without mentioning my brother by name. I described the incident and asked that the front desk log all visitor access more carefully. Then I texted my brother directly. "I have a camera at my door. Please don't come by without calling first." He responded 3 hours later. "Wasn't me. No idea what you're talking about. Why are you being so paranoid?" There it was, paranoid. The word family uses when you notice something they'd rather you didn't. I stopped answering his calls after that. I checked in with my mom by text, kept it brief, made sure I had eyes on anything that mattered. For a few weeks, things were quiet enough that I started to wonder if I had overreacted. I kept the cameras. I kept the locks. I kept the doubt in its place. Then came the weekend. I drove 4 hours upstate to visit a college friend who'd just had a baby. I left Friday evening. I checked the cameras before I merged onto the highway. Nothing. The hallway was empty, the interior sensors were silent, and the smart lock showed no activity. Saturday night, just after 10, my phone lit up on my friend's nightstand. Motion detected. Front door. I sat up and opened the app. The hallway camera showed the door to my unit, and the smart lock log showed something that made my stomach drop. An access attempt. Not with my code. Someone had tried a code. Then another attempt. Then nothing. I sat in the dark guest room for a moment, running through the possibilities. Wrong unit. Building maintenance with the wrong door. Random. I watched the clip twice more. The figure outside my door stood there for almost a minute before walking away. They weren't lost. They were thinking. I texted the building manager with the timestamp and asked them to pull the lobby camera footage. Then I called my next-door neighbor, Mrs. Delacroix, a retired schoolteacher who noticed everything and apologized for nothing. She answered on the second ring. "I saw someone in the hall earlier," she said before I could finish asking. "Knocked on your door twice. A man, youngish, had that look." "What look?" "Like he was deciding something," she said. I thanked her, hung up, and opened my family group chat for the first time in weeks. My sister-in-law had posted a photo at 6 that evening. A restaurant 40 minutes from my building, her and my brother and the kids. Family night out. With a heart emoji. 40 minutes away. At 6. And someone was at my door at 10. I didn't sleep well that night. Sunday, I drove home earlier than planned. I walked through every room, checked every window, cross-referenced the camera footage with the lobby log the building manager had pulled. The lobby camera had caught someone in a hood entering through the main door at 9:42 and leaving at 10:08. The building manager confirmed the person had been buzzed in by a resident on the 3rd floor who said they thought they recognized him as a visitor of mine. That piece of information hit differently than the rest. Someone had gotten in by using my name. I sat at my kitchen counter for a long time that evening. There was no direct proof it was my brother. There was a series of things that added up in a way I couldn't ignore. The visit, the appraisal, the silence, the attempts, the timing, and someone using my name to get through the door. I thought about what I had done to protect myself. New locks, smart lock, camera, building notification. All of it, and someone had still found a way to the hallway outside my door. I thought about what my brother would say if I confronted him. What he'd always said. "You're so paranoid. You've always made everything so dramatic. Why do you have to turn everything into a thing?" I thought about the Easter dinner 2 years ago and the way no one at the table had looked at me. And then I stopped thinking about his version of events and focused on mine. I called a lawyer friend from college who now worked in real estate and property law. I explained the situation, not the family history, just the documented incidents. The access attempts on the smart lock, the lobby footage, the resident who'd buzzed someone in under my name. She listened without interrupting, which told me she was taking it seriously. "Document everything," she said. "Timestamps, footage, the building manager's confirmation. If it escalates, you have a foundation. And if I want to make it stop before it escalates," she was quiet for a second. "Send a certified letter to his address. Formal notice that he is not authorized to access your property or your building, and that any future attempts will be treated as trespass and reported to the police." It's not a lawsuit. It's a line. I typed the letter that night. I had it certified and mailed the next morning. He called me 4 times in the 48 hours after it arrived. I didn't answer any of them. His texts ranged from confused to hurt to cold. cycling through the same phases his moods always did. The last one read, "I can't believe you'd do this to family over nothing. I hope you're proud of yourself." I wasn't proud. I wasn't ashamed either. I was something steadier than both. My mom called 2 days later. I picked up. "Your brother is very upset," she said. "I know. He says you sent him some kind of legal document." I did. She was quiet for a moment. "Was that really necessary, sweetheart?" I chose my next words carefully. "Someone used my name to get into my building at 10 at night while I was out of town. Someone attempted to access my front door with a code that wasn't mine. I have it all on camera. So yes, it was necessary." Another pause. "He said he was worried about you, that he just wanted to check in." At 10 at night, without calling, after I'd told him not to come by without warning? She didn't answer that directly. She made a sound that meant she understood more than she was willing to say out loud. We talked for a few more minutes about other things, careful things, and when we hung up I sat with the quiet for a while. She wasn't going to take my side out loud, that wasn't new. But she hadn't tried to talk me out of the letter either, and with her, that was something. The weeks that followed were strange. My brother had gone silent in the way people do when they're recalibrating. The extended family had heard some version of the story, enough to form opinions, not enough to get it right. My cousin sent me a long text about keeping the peace. My aunt said she hoped things could blow over. I didn't fight any of it. I didn't defend, explain, or justify. I'd spent years in that cycle, offering context to people who were never going to update their conclusions. I was done auditing myself for other people's comfort. What surprised me was how small the noise got once I stopped amplifying it. Mrs. Delacroix brought me cookies one afternoon and told me I'd done the right thing. "People only push past lines they're sure you won't hold," she said, dunking a shortbread into her tea. "You held yours." I thought about that for a long time. My coworker, the one who'd tagged me in the photo that started all of this, apologized when she heard a version of what happened. I told her it wasn't her fault, and I meant it. She hadn't known. The photo was a small thing that handed someone a map they'd already been looking to find. A few months passed. My brother called once on my birthday, brief and stiff, a performance of normalcy neither of us believed. I thanked him and kept it short. There was no warmth between us anymore, but there was no more tension either. Just the flat factual truth that we were people who shared parents and not much else. I started decorating the condo in earnest. Put up shelves in the second bedroom, which became my actual office, with a desk that faced the window and plants on the sill that I remembered to water. I got a couch that I chose entirely by myself, no compromise, no committee, just the color and the shape I wanted. I cooked dinner on weeknights and left the dishes until morning and answered to no one about either of those decisions. There were nights I sat on my small balcony with a cup of tea, watching the park below, and thought about the version of myself who had sat in that parking lot after Easter dinner calculating how long it would take. She had been so careful, so patient, so convinced she had to earn the right to want something for herself without apologizing for it. I wanted to tell her it was worth it. Every shifted double, every skipped trip, every month of watching the savings balance and not touching it. I thought about my brother sometimes, too. Not with anger anymore. Mostly with something that felt like clarity. He wasn't a monster. He was someone who had learned that the people who loved him would move to accommodate him. And he had never been given a reason to stop expecting that. The letter was the first real reason. I didn't know if he'd learned anything from it. That wasn't mine to own. What was mine was the deadbolt clicking behind me at the end of each day. The camera blinking its small red light in the corner. The lease I never had to sign again. The kitchen that smelled like my coffee and no one else's. People who haven't built something from scratch don't always understand what it costs. Not just money, though that part is real and hard and rarely acknowledged, but the cost of attention, of delayed gratification, of holding something close and quiet while the people around you tell you it's selfish or it's too much, or you should think about someone else for once. I thought about someone else for most of my 20s. I sent money home when my brother's hours got cut. I covered a car repair for my mom when I was still paying off my own student loans. I worked holidays so coworkers with kids could stay home with their families. None of that made the news. None of it earned me a speech at Easter dinner. But this condo, this quiet, this key on a plain silver ring, that, apparently, required a conversation. I don't regret the letter. I don't regret the locks or the cameras or the choice to stop answering calls from people who only reached out when they wanted leverage. What I regret is the years I spent believing that wanting something for myself was a character flaw I needed to justify. It isn't. If you're reading this and you're in the middle of your own version of that Easter dinner, someone at the table telling you your dreams are too big or too selfish or better spent on someone else, I want you to hear this. Finish eating, thank them for dinner, go home and do the math, figure out what it takes, start saving, tell no one until the keys are in your hand. And when you finally hold them, you won't need anyone's permission to feel like you've earned it. Because you will have, completely, quietly, entirely on your own terms.